This video is in continuation of the uh, Unit 1 Part 5, in which we have discussed about the symmetric cryptography, as well as we have also discussed that symmetric cryptography is a kind of a cryptography which is most oftenly used, and of course it is having certain problem related with the key exchange as well as handling the number of key. Besides that, it is being used very often. Now, the first problem which is associated with the symmetric cryptography was the key exchange. That was also discussed in the video number 5, in which Diffie-Hellman key exchange algorithm has been discussed, which is used for the key exchange for removing the problem of the key exchange. But of course, it is also having some problem. But if authentication is being added before the communication took place, the Diffie-Hellman key exchange algorithm is going to give you the solution of solving the problem that is related to the symmetric cryptography key exchange problem. Now, besides that, we have the second cryptography, second classification of the cryptography, that is asymmetric cryptography, in which instead of using the shared symmetric key, we will be using asymmetric key. Now, asymmetric key means we will be using two different keys. One will be used for encryption purpose and another will be used for the decryption purpose. It means sender and the receiver both are having different keys. Sender will be having the key by which it will be going to encrypt, and receiver will be having another key, which is the counterpart of the encrypted key for the decryption purpose. Now, these two keys are being used in asymmetric cryptography, and every user is associated with two keys. One is called the public key and another is called the private key. So normally what happens that whenever any message has to be encrypted, any user used to encrypt it by its private key, or it can be encrypted by the public key. Now, if the user is using private key to encrypt, the public key will be used to decrypt it. But if the user is using public key, it will be the private key by which it can be decrypted. Suppose how it works. Suppose A and B are the two users, and A want to send some message, secret message to B. So what A will be doing? A will be using the public key of B to encrypt the information or the message, and whenever this encrypted message is being received by B, it will be using its private key to decrypt it. Similarly, whenever B wants to communicate with A, so B will be using public key of A to encrypt the message, and A will be using the private key to decrypt the message. So in this way, this asymmetric cryptography used to work, in which two keys are used, public key and the private key. And how it works? Every user has two keys. One is public, another is private. So what the user used to do, it makes the public key to the public. So anybody who wants to make the communication with A will be using its public key, means A's public key, to encrypt the message, and it will be sending it into the network. Now, this information or the message which is encrypted by the public key of a legitimate user, it can be decrypted only by the private key, and private key lies privately with the user only, so nobody else sitting in between can open it. So it will be meant for the legitimate user, and since it is having its private key, so that key will be used to decrypt the message. So this information encrypted by the public key will be decrypted only by the private key. This is the mandatory. So the user announces its public key, and it used to keep the private key with itself, and that is the secret key which is associated with the particular user. So this asymmetric key is going to solve the problem of the key exchange, because every user will be identified by the two different keys, and the total number of the keys which will be required whenever one wants to communicate with another is 2n instead of n into n minus 1 in case of symmetric key. So the number of keys which are used, there are 1,000 users in the network. So it means 1,000 to 2,000 keys will be used. But in case of symmetric key, you have seen that if there are 1,000 users, then in that case 1,000 into 1,000 minus 1 will number of keys will be used. So this is going to reduce, symmetric key cryptography is going to reduce whatever is the problem which is associated with the symmetric key, that is key exchange problem, because there is no such key exchange problem. The keys are generated by the user itself, announces its public key to the public, and keeps the private key with itself. And this happens with each and every user present in the network. So the total number of the keys are less in comparison to, and there is no key exchange problem, because every user is generating its two keys, making public key public and private key keeping it with self secret. We will discuss later on, whenever the time comes, about the asymmetric key cryptography in detail. This is just the introduction part of the asymmetric key cryptography. Now, another kind of hiding the message is known as steganography. We know that it is different from the cryptography. Cryptography is a method or a technique by which we are transcripting the message, we are decoding the message, we are encoding the message into a non-readable form. But steganography is a kind of a technique in which we try to hide a secret message inside another message. Now you have seen the live example, or the example which exists in public is the invisible ink or pin puncture, or the specific character, or the pencil marks, etc. Now, the secret message is being hidden within the graphic message, and that how it is being done? We take the message, replace its rightmost bit of each byte of that message by the next two bits of the secret message. So, related with every image, the last two bits of each byte is being replaced by the secret message. Now the resulting image which is being received by the receiver is not as original as it should be, but it hides the secret message itself, and the receiver, whenever it is used to receive that kind of information, it performs the opposite trick, and it extracts only the last two bits of each byte and try to reconstruct the message. So steganography is a kind of a technique in which we use to hide the secret messages within the image or something else. So this is how it can happen. So it is a little bit different from the cryptography, but it is also used for hiding the message. Now we come to another very important issues which are related with the cryptography, in which we are using encryption and decryption process. We know that whenever we are using encryption in the decryption process, so we will be using certain algorithm. That algorithm is called encryption algorithm for encrypting, and decryption algorithm for the decrypting the message. Now, whenever we do this, the plain text is being converted into a ciphertext, and that ciphertext travels on the network. So there are two important things which any person who is sitting in between the sender and the receiver can have in the form of information. The first information which he or she is having is the encryption or the decryption algorithm, because it is known to everyone. The second important thing is the ciphertext which is traveling on the network. It is also known because it can be captured. It is not a hidden message. It is a kind of a message which is traveling. So the person who is sitting in between is having the knowledge of the algorithm, as well as it has the knowledge of the ciphertext. But what he does not have the idea of plain text, or as well as he does not have any idea about the key which is used for encryption process. So the hacker, what it used to do, it used to do the crypt analysis technique by which it is able to find out the key. Because once it is able to find out the key, any information, any plain text which is being converted into a ciphertext can be received, can be accessed, can be understood by the attacker. So brute force attack is a kind of a attack which the attacker used to perform, and it's an iterative activity. It is an activity which is performed by the attacker by doing what? What attacker used to do? It knows the algorithm, it knows the ciphertext. So how it is done? It starts from the key. So what he assumes certain key and try to decrypt the ciphertext into a plain text. And if it finds that the plain text is something meaningful, it means whatever key he has applied, that message, that key is the correct key. So a brute force attack is a kind of attack without knowing the key. The attacker, what it used to do, it applies all types of possible keys one by one without any knowledge of the key, and the time comes when it finds that the ciphertext has been converted into a plain text which is of certain meaning. It is able to know that what kind of key is being used. So the important issues which are related uh, with the brute force attack is it starts from the lower key, from the 0, then 1, then 2, then 3, then 4, and the time will come in. Now this brute force attack can be successful if the key length is small, because key length is going to play a very important role. Suppose we are using single bit key. So single bit key means either it will be 0 or it will be 1. So once the attacker will be using 0 and trying to decrypt the message, another time it will be using 1 to decrypt the message. So there are only two possibilities. So if the length is 1, then it is very easy to be successful. If the key length is 2 bit, then the combination can be obtained as 4, that is 0 0 0 1 1 0 and 1 1. So if the attacker used to perform this kind of things by first time it is selecting 0 0, next time it is selecting 0 1, then next time applying 1 0 and then 1 1. So meaning thereby, if the key length is small, the key range will be less, and it is more successful. The brute force attack is going to be more successful if the key length is small. So that is why it is always suggested that we should apply the key while using the encryption, the decryption algorithm. We should apply a large key whose length is more. And if the length of the key is more, the range of the key will be more. So there will be less possibility of getting the brute force attack. This is a illustration of a brute force attack. Suppose this is a particular ciphertext which the attacker is knowing. This is ciphertext which the attacker is knowing. It is applying first the key is equal to 0 and getting the plain text like this. It is not understandable. Then it is applying, then it is using key number 1, and then it is also getting not a meaningful plain text. But after a certain time, it will be decrypting by using a certain amount of the key, and it is getting the plain text. So brute force attack is a kind of attack that it will start iteration process. It will do one by one. It will write a program, and that program will generate the key of the size length 1, then 2, then 3, then 4, then 5, then 6, and the time will come when it is able to decrypt. So it is always suggested that whenever you are using encryption or decryption algorithm, whatever algorithm you are using, whether you are using symmetric algorithm or you are using asymmetric algorithm, you have to ensure that your key length should be as good as possible. So, so what key range specifies? The key range specifies the number of possible keys. Bigger the range, it will be more difficult to have an attack, and that is why it is always suggested in practice to use at least 64-bit key or 128-bit key or 256-bit key. Because if the key length is of 64-bit, it seems that it is very difficult to crack that particular key, because it will start 64-bit means it is a very huge amount, and the range of 64-bit will also be huge. So, and it is always suggested that a key can be found after the half of the possible range. अगर वो जो भी की रेंज है अगर उसके हाफ तक वो different possibilities try करता है, then it is possible that he will be able to getting the key. So normally it is suggested that we have to use the uh, key size, the length of the key to be more, at least 64 bit. Now this is an illustration of an example. The key range is of 2 bit. We have the possibility that we have 0, 0, 0, 1, 1, 0, and 1, 1. If we have 3 bit key, then we have 8 possibilities. Similarly, if we have 4 bit key, then we have 16 possibilities. If we have 5 bit, then we have 32 bit, 32 possibilities. If we have 6, then we have like that. So as the length of the key is going to increase, if the length of the key is going to increase, the possibility will be, there will be less possibility of getting the key. Now, by using the mathematics, it has been declared that if the key size of the bits are 56, then time required to search 1% of the key space is 1 second, and time required to search 50% of the key space is 1 minute. But if the key size is 57, the time required to search 1% of the key space is 2 seconds, and the time required to search 50% of the key space is 2 minutes. Meaning thereby, if the size of the key is going to increase from 56 to 57, there is increase of 1 bit. The time required to search 1% of the key space is going to just the double. Similarly, time required to search the 50% of the key space is also double. Similarly, if we have a 64-bit key, it requires 4.2 minutes to search 1% of the key space, and 50% of the key space can be searched in 4.2 hours. But if the key size is 128, if it is 128, it is going to have 146 billion millennia to search 1% of the key space, and 8 trillion millennia is the time to search the 50% of the key space. So meaning thereby, the mathematics has shown that if the size of the key is going to increase only by 1 bit, the time required to search 1% or 50% of the key space is going to be double. Now this is the key size and the key range, which has been shown that key size is of 40 bit. So what will be the range? 40 bit means 0, 0, 0, 0, 0, 0, means 40 binary digits will be there, and starting from 0, 0, 0. Now it is shown in this is shown in the hexadecimal form, because one hexadecimal digit is equal to 4 bit. So 10 hexadecimal digits will be equal to 40 bits. So starting range will be from 0, 0, 0, 0, 0, and the last will be FFFFF if the key size is of 40 bit. If the key size is of 64 bit, then the range will be starting from 0, 0, 0, 0, 0, 0, 0, 0, 0, 0 to FFFF. If the size is 128 bit, so the range is going to be more and more. Now, the possible types of the attack, there are 5 possibilities for an attack on the message sent by the sender to the receiver. And the first is the ciphertext only attack. Now, in this type of attack, the attacker does not have any clue about the plaintext. It doesn't have any clue about the plaintext, but have some or all ciphertext, because ciphertext is traveling on the network. So it does not have any clue about the plaintext, but it has certain clue about the ciphertext. So what it does, it analyzes the ciphertext just to get an idea about the plaintext, and how it is done, based on the frequency of the character, it tries to guess the plaintext. Because whenever a plaintext is converted to a ciphertext, and the same plaintext is converted into ciphertext, that whatever is its ciphertext, suppose we are talking about T, so ciphertext of T will be same wherever the T is coming into the plaintext in the ciphertext. So what attacker tries to do, it narrow down the various permutation and combination and try to obtain from the frequency of the characters which is available in the ciphertext to get the value of the plaintext. So it always tries the different permutation and the combination to obtain the plaintext. Now, this kind of attack is successful if the attacker is able to access sufficient amount of the ciphertext. If it has sufficient amount of the ciphertext, it will be able to know that the frequency of the different characters which is being received at this in the ciphertext, and based on the frequency of that, it tries to guess that what can be the plain text. The second type of attack is known as known plain text attack. Now, in this, the attacker knows some pair of the plain text as well as corresponding ciphertext for those pair. It is having certain idea of the plain text and its corresponding ciphertext. And using this information, attacker tries to find other pairs. कि अगर इस प्लेन टेक्स्ट का साइफर टेक्स्ट ये है, इस प्लेन टेक्स्ट का साइफर टेक्स्ट ये है, इस प्लेन टेक्स्ट का एक्स प्लेन टेक्स्ट का साइफर टेक्स्ट z है, y प्लेन टेक्स्ट का साइफर टेक्स्ट b है, z प्लेन टेक्स्ट का साइफर टेक्स्ट c है, then tries to find out what can be the ciphertext of p, what can be the ciphertext of q, what can be the ciphertext of z. So therefore, to know more and more about the plaintext, it is required that he must have available the pair of the plaintext and its corresponding ciphertext. So this kind of attack is known as known plaintext attack. The third one is the chosen plaintext attack. Now, in this chosen plaintext attack, the attacker selects a plaintext block and tries to look for the encryption of the same in the ciphertext. कि अगर ये plain text block है, तो इस plain text block का ciphertext क्या होगा, इस ciphertext में क्या होगा. Now, attacker is able to choose the message to encrypt, and based on this, the attacker intentionally picks the patterns of the ciphertext and result in obtaining more and more information about the key. So, chosen plaintext attack is a kind of attack in which the attacker wants to know the key value depending upon the plaintext converted into a ciphertext, and that ciphertext is being matched in the list of the ciphertext which is available on the network. The next one is the chosen ciphertext attack. Now, this attack is not very common type of attack. In this particular attack, attacker knows the ciphertext to be decrypted, the encryption algorithm as well as the corresponding plaintext block. अगर अटैकर को ciphertext मालूम है जिसको उसे डिक्रिप्ट करना है, उसको encryption algorithm मालूम है कि कौन सी encryption algorithm यूज की गई है, और उस ciphertext के अगेंस्ट में plain text block क्या है, क्योंकि इसमें total idea of the attacker is to find out the key. The attacker job is to get the key, and the key can be obtained only when it is knowing the ciphertext, it is knowing the encryption algorithm, and it is knowing its corresponding plaintext. Because if all these three things are known, then attacker can be able to get the key itself. That is why, since all the three things is not available at a time by an attacker for a certain particular reasons, that is why this kind of attack is not very common. And the last one is the chosen text attack. It is essentially a combination of chosen plaintext attack, plus the chosen ciphertext attack. So both the combination of this type of attack comes into the category of the chosen text attack. Now we have certain summary of things known to the attacker for the these 5 kinds of attack. What is known to the attacker and what the attacker wants to know. So if it is ciphertext only attack, then the things which are known to the attacker is ciphertext of several messages, and all of which are encrypted with the same encryption key. And things that the attacker wants to find out is the plain text message corresponding to a ciphertext. It is also trying to know the key used for the encryption and the decryption. So every kind of attack has its own purpose, its own that what attacker wants to do. If it is a known plain text attack, the attacker, the things which are known to the attacker are the ciphertext of the several messages, the plain text message corresponding to the different ciphertext, as well as it is also the algorithm used. If it is chosen plain text attack, the attacker which is known to the thing which is known to the attacker is the ciphertext and associated its plain text, as well as it chooses the plain text to be encrypted. If it is chosen ciphertext, then the ciphertext, the things which are known to the attacker is the ciphertext of the several messages to be decrypted, as well as corresponding plaintext. So every type of attack which we have discussed comes into. It depends that what kind of things it wants to. It is known to him, it known to the attacker, and what kind of thing it wants to achieve by doing this kind of attack.